Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Pastor Scott Show. We are live on Thursday. Go to PastorScottShow.com, PastorScottShow.com to connect with us online. Phone number is 888-528-2557 if you want to join the conversation. 888-528-2557. We talk about issues of the day from a Christian perspective. Go to clip number 1.
We are building a brand new store on city-owned land currently sitting empty in East Harlem. A neighborhood where nearly 40% of households receive public assistance or SNAP in the past year. Now, some will insist that city-owned businesses do not work, that government cannot keep up with corporations. My answer to them is simple. I look forward to the competition. I look forward to the competition.
That is New York Socialist Mayor Zoran Mamdani promising, keeping his promise to start some government grocery stores in some parts of New York where grocery stores are, in fact, needed and have left town, probably because of communist policies in New York previously. And this gives us an opportunity for today's socialism update.
It's all supplied. Just don't ask where the money hides. Free for all, just fall in line. What is yours is now combined. It's the socialism update, hear the call. The state knows best for one and all. The state provides. The state decides.
All right, socialism update, where the promises are always free and the consequences are expensive and painful for the people that ultimately those solutions are meant to help. We talk about this because it's coming to our towns, coming to Los Angeles right now. You're going to have the opportunity probably to vote for a socialist mayor in Los Angeles, and that is coming soon to San Diego and cities all over California. And we should be aware because the promises are addressing real problems that are severe, but the solutions that are being presented have failed every time, and the people that they are meant to help, they actually hurt. So this week, New York City's Mayor Mamdani, who is a self-described Democratic socialist, okay? So he ran as a Democrat, but he's a Democratic socialist. His party doesn't really even like Democrats, just so you're kind of aware of where they're at. And one of the big ideas was city-owned government supermarkets, and he's announced now that he wants 5 taxpayer-funded public grocery stores, one in each borough in New York. The first is slated for the La Marqueta in East Harlem. The construction alone for this is $30 million. And the tab for all 5 is only budgeted at $70 million. So I'm not sure how you're going to get the other 4 if you're spending almost half on one. You know what's he mentions in that clip we just played that government can't keep up with corporations. You know how much it costs to open up an Aldi? Jose, how much do you think, like a grocery store in Southern California, expensive Los Angeles, San Diego, what does it cost to start a grocery store?
All right, so how much did you say was it for the one in New York City?
He's going to spend $30 million on the first one.
All right, it's got to be just like, I'd probably say like 10.
$10 million. Yeah. Aldi can do it for $1.5 million to $3 million.
See, my second guess was $5 million.
Yeah. And so that means already he's spending between 10 and 20 times more than a regular corporate grocery store would do to open it up. So that's already where we're starting with all of that. But here's the deal. The idea is, and he calls it a grand experiment, although it's been tried in many places already. We'll get to that. The city owns the buildings and subsidizes the overhead, and a private operator will run the day-to-day, but must pass any savings to customers by contract. Okay, so no profit is the idea for the city, and that's how you would get prices down. Problem is that grocery stores only have an average of a 2% profit anyway. Like they're the big corporate grocery stores that you go to, they're fighting for their nickels and dimes for all of that. Now, those nickels and dimes add up for sure. But the idea is that, hey, we can sell food cheaper, in particular bread and eggs he talked about and things like that are staples. And you know what? That sounds compassionate. That sounds like something we ought to do, because what is happening, and it's happening here in Southern California, is that grocery stores, the big ones and the inexpensive ones, are leaving. Even our, less expensive, food for less, groups like that, they're not able to hang on. Part of that is because the economy is just very, very tight and it's not very profitable. But the other part is that often they are dealing with crime and theft and other stuff, and they can't keep up with that overhead, so they're out. But unfortunately, that leaves people hungry. That leaves people in many communities far away from a big grocery store, even though just down the street from where this one is going to be in New York is actually a Costco, which doesn't sound like a, I know you got to have a membership to get in there, but you probably can swing it most of the time. Anyway, so he said, we are not hoping for affordability. We are guaranteeing affordability. And a public option allows us to intervene where the market has failed. That's the socialist framing that you're going to hear all the time. That the free market is the villain, government is the hero. That's what Lenin argued. That's what Stalin argued. That's what Mao argues. That's what Maduro and Hugo Chavez argued in Venezuela. This is a New Yorker, Venezuelan-born economist, Daniel DiMartino, and he is responding to Mamdani's idea of the grocery store. This is what he says to what?
Mayor Zohran Mamdani just announced that New York City will spend $30 million to open the first government-run grocery store. And while his supporters are celebrating, I can tell you, being from Venezuela, a socialist country, and also an economist, that this idea will not end well. What is the goal of a government-run grocery store? Supposedly it's to sell cheaper items, since the store won't have to profit on the things they sell you, and they won't have to pay rent because it's on city-owned property. But that is not how it works in reality.
That's not what comes about. You're listening to the Pastor Scott Show. We're doing a socialism update. You can call and join the conversation, 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. He continues with this, 2-2.
First, and this is where it gets really funny, the first government-run grocery store in New York City is going to be right next to a Costco, one of the cheapest grocery store chains in America, which means they're only going to take business away from a tax-paying business in New York.
So what you see is the immediate problem where if you bring in a government-run grocery store where you're undercutting the prices because you can, the other stores are going to have trouble. And people will shop there less. They'll pay less tax ultimately, either to the state or the city, depending on what the tax situation is for them. The bigger one is you put out the smaller grocers, the people who have lived in those communities, who have in New York City, especially the little bodegas, but we have a lot of those tiny stores, little hole-in-the-wall grocery stores that have been there forever, and you know the grocer, you know the guy working there, and the family is there. Well, they're out of business. They can't compete. They're only doing a couple of percentage points margin as it is, and so they're out of a job. That's first, and here's why.
More importantly, when a grocery store notices that a customer wants a certain product, they stock it because they can profit from you. But in a city-run store, there is no profit motive. So if their paycheck doesn't depend on whether you find what you need, the shelves won't be stocked based on what you want, but based on what the government wants you to purchase.
What do you think the government wants you to purchase? Like, when it comes to your food, what is it that the government really wants you to purchase? They get to pick now what is on the shelf. How did that work in Venezuela?
This already happened in my native country of Venezuela. And what did that look like? Well, I had to line up for several blocks to buy low-quality products at the government-run grocery stores. What were those low-quality products? For example, bean bags full of rocks, coffee full of dust, and things that were rotten. And the $30 million price tag is just the start. The city is going to lose money on this every single year, and that money could have gone to people who actually need it.
And that is going to happen over and over and over again. The government is putting forward ideas that you shouldn't be eating meat at all. You should be eating insects. Like, you think that's a silly thing, but it's not. If that's your only choice and the government is in charge and they got to keep costs down, well, would you do that, Jose? Would you eat a mosquito steak or something like that? That's a thing in different parts of the world. I think they're pushing that now in Australia and some other places.
No, I wouldn't eat none of that.
Very
Sorry.
high in protein.
I'm sure it is, but come on.
You should have a choice anyway, right? I mean, maybe you want to pay less for that, but this is how this goes. Now, he's talking about Venezuela, and you might be saying, well, yeah, but that's Venezuela, and what about America? Let me tell you what, it's the same thing in every single place. What happened in Venezuela with all of that was nightmares. Bare shelves, long hours of lines to wait. In fact, the Babylon Bee satire newspaper today put out a headline that said, Zohran Mamdani is inviting, even though the store won't be open for over a year, he's inviting you to get in line for your bread now, which is pretty darn funny, I think, right?
You keep using the word.
Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. That's not funny. I got the wrong one.
You got an attitude with you, I'll tell you that.
I do. I meant to hit this. There we go. So what about the United States? here's the pattern. And we've done this in the United States in several cities. We've tried this before. Government enters the market, claims it will lower prices. Private businesses can't compete, and they will eventually shut down. First, the smaller grocers, the local grocers, the people who own the little liquor stores, the people who own the tiny little groceries, the tiny little Quickie Marts, 7-Elevens, whatever it is, they're out because they can't compete with those prices. Now there's less competition. Maybe the Costco can stay, but they're going to be frustrated with all of that. Quality drops, shortage rises, and eventually the government store struggles too. And it's the only option left. And they can't keep the shelves stocked because, you know why? Because everybody there still has a job whether they stock the shelves or not. There's no pressure. There's no competition. There's no reason to have better produce than the guy down the street. There's no reason to make sure your store is clean, to make sure it smells good, to make sure that the produce is fresh. You just get whatever you can at whatever price you can. And if the truck doesn't come in, well, it doesn't matter. This is what happens every time. And you know who gets hurt? Not the politicians, not the mayor who gets to live in his mansion or go back after he's out of office with his fancy place that he grew up in. The people get hurt every time. The very people that are meant to be helped. So instead of a really good place to get food less expensively, you get a government place with initially slightly lower prices, not that much, just a little bit. And then eventually you lose all of the other options and you have no competition and eventually no food at all. And it costs millions and millions of taxpayer money, which is your money that is taken for that. Here's what's happened every time in the United States. In Kansas City, Missouri, the city poured $30 million into taxpayer dollars over a decade into the Sunfresh Market, a nonprofit-run, government-backed grocery store in what was called a food desert. And it was supposed to bring in fresh food to low-income residents. Instead, empty shelves, rampant crime, theft, supply chain breakdowns, labor shortages, and management chaos. And the customers stayed away, and the stores closed last summer. We did a whole bit on that. Millions were wasted, and there were no private options left because all the other grocers were out of town. Who was hurt by that? Everybody. In Baldwin, Florida. Now, this is interesting because this is in a small, deep red town, okay? So this isn't your socialists. This is probably conservatives. We don't really know. It's like nonpartisan offices, right? But it's a pretty red area of Florida when it comes to that. Their only private grocery store shut down in 2018. City Hall stepped in, opened up the municipally owned Baldwin Market in 2019 and hailed it as a solution. And they ran it directly with taxpayer subsidies. The result? Operating losses piled up year after year, $61,000 the first full year. This is a small town, right? So this is a lot of money for that town. Ballooning to $178,000 the next. They couldn't break even, and the store closed permanently in March of 2024. Residents went from having one option to nothing, ultimately, and instead a lot of debt and a lot of taxpayer money needed to be raised to pay for that. Small towns in Kansas, Erie, and St. Paul have tried the same thing. They bought failing stores with public money, ran at a loss. They had to hand them back to private operators or watch them die because it doesn't work. Chicago has floated this idea under its own socialist-leaning mayor and has backed off, actually, because the math, you can't beat it. That's the pattern. And yet we hear it over and over and over again. No profit motive means no efficiency because it's built into the human psyche and how that works. If you don't really have to do your work, then you're not going to, right? This is why lots of places where you have people working, government places where people can't get fired or can't get fired very easily, that's why it's lousy so often. 888-528-2557. This is the Pastor Scott Show, 888-528-2557. We're talking about our socialism update today. You can join the conversation at 888-528-2557. And I talk about this because we're going to have this on our ballot coming up here. This is already how we're dealing with homelessness here in Los Angeles, 4-1.
Hey, Los Angeles, are you aware that socialists in LA city government are stealing your money?
We just finished doing a tour of the site with the Bureau of Engineering and the Bureau of Contract Administration and our contractors to check out the installation of the 16 new modular homes that will include 64 interim housing beds. Northeast New Beginnings is only possible because my team and I worked to get a grant from the state, $16 million to build 64 new beds in Council District 1 of interim housing.
All right, 64 new beds, and it costs $16 million. For 64 beds, $16 million. That's how the city does it, right? That's $250,000 a bed. I think it's more than that, right? $16 million. Yeah, $250,000 a bed is how that works out. You know, the Union Rescue Mission downtown, they can not just give you a bed and shelter, but they can feed you and take care of you for a year, all of your needs for about $15,000. And yet the city buys these, they're not really tiny houses, they're little modular things that you're going to sit in there with no rules, no food, nothing else is paid for. That's just what these things cost. $16 million taxpayer money for only 64 people when we have tens of thousands of people who are homeless and need help. This is Spencer Pratt, who is running for mayor here in Los Angeles, 4-2.
So let's forget the fact that the DEA reports that 90% of the homeless population in LA are hardcore criminal drug users.
Especially in Los Angeles, there's a lot of it. How many people are using illicit drugs in the homeless community? I would say it's incredibly high.
20%, 30%?
Of the overall problem?
Yeah.
Over 90%.
And let's pretend for a second that these people just had some medical bills come in all at once that made them lose their job, and that they're a single mom and they just need to float 3 to 6 months of paychecks to get back on their feet, 3 to 6 months of the median income, like $15,000 to $25,000. We're spending $250,000 per bed. You could just give them that money and they'd be set for 5 years. What the hell are we doing? These crazy socialists on the city council are legitimately just stealing our tax dollars and doling it out to their friends, and they rub it in your face too.
Is he right about that? I think he's basically right. We could just, why not give the homeless, if you're going to spend that money, if you're going to spend that much money, maybe just give it to that person. Give somebody who's homeless, who, and he's given the example of not the 90% who need help getting sober, who need help getting off the drugs. Whole nother problem. Talking about the people who just need to get over a crisis in their life or be able to pay some medical bills that they didn't expect, certain things that have caused that crisis. Give them the $250,000. I would rather do that. I would rather give a single mob $250,000 and say, you know what, pay your medical bills, get caught up on the rent, get caught up on everything, and you'll have plenty of time to go get a job and feed your kids and do all of that. And then you can stay in your apartment, or then you can go get an apartment that's out there and live for a while. I don't know, 5 years, maybe 5 years. Depends on how much of the bills that you got to pay there here in Los Angeles. But $250,000, you can put, if you put that in a savings account, you would make hundreds of dollars every month. And if you invested it, you actually could do pretty well for a while. Why not do that? See, that's if you're going to get government involved and spend the money, why not do that? To me, that sounds better. This matters if we really care, because all of this is always couched in compassion. And I think for a lot of people, their heart is there. They want to take care of people, and they see this entity and the money that's available from the government and the taxpayer, and we're going to do this. But what ends up happening is you end up hurting the people. And this happens time and time and time again. It's going to happen in New York. You know what? A year from now, they're going to open up that grocery store. Maybe a year from now. It'll probably be very over budget. There will be lots of balloons and celebration and lots of pictures of people going in there shopping. They did this recently. Poly Market, which is really a gambling organization, did that as a publicity stunt. They called it the Poly Market in New York. And they had all these news stories. They gave them all kinds of publicity of people going in there. And it was essentially free food. Just take what you need. But it was only open for a day or two for the publicity stunt, which is what it was. It wasn't really meant to be this. They're going to have that kind of circus going on. And but give it a year. Give it 2 years, and I'll bet it's a mess because it happens every time. We gotta pay attention. That's why I want to update you on this, because you're going to be presented with, hey, the market is bad, the evil people are mad, the billionaires are bad, and you know what? The billionaires need to give more money. The billionaires ought to be organizing this privately. They could do a whole lot better job. There's a whole lot of things that ought to happen. There's legitimate complaints. But when government gets involved, it makes things worse, not better. It's just the nature of it. It's just the nature of how it works. It costs a whole lot more money. There's all kinds of fraud. I mean, look at all the fraud we got in this town right now. And we're paying $250,000 a bed, and we're excited about that. We shouldn't be. We should be ashamed that that's what we're doing. All right, that's the Socialist Update for today. 888-528-2557 is the number. This is the Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com, pastorscottshow.com, and you can check us out online for that. Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk about good news. You got a lot of bad news. A lot of bad news. We're just talking about some bad news and some things to be afraid of, to be concerned about. I don't want you to be afraid. I want you to learn and take action. But let's turn it around. And when we come back, what's good happening in your life? What is the good news happening in your life right now? Something that has been a victory, answer to prayer. Let's share that. We'll do the good news when we come back. 888-528-2557. You can call now. 888-528-2557. Pastor Scott Show live Thursday. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're live on the Pastor Scott Show, and we talk about issues of the day from a Christian perspective. Phone number is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Go to pastorscottshow.com. Hey, I'm in the mood for some good news. What is the good news going on in your life? 888-528-2557. Call now. That's right. We're going to take a break from all of the other kinds of news and talk about the good news. What's the good news happening in your life? A victory that you've had, something that made you smile, something that you're looking forward to, something that you've enjoyed. Maybe you've had a really huge answer to prayer. Maybe you just have something fun that you're looking forward to this summer, that you just planned your vacation. Maybe you've had a new addition to the family. There's all kinds of things that are good news. The Bible actually tells us to share the good news with each other, not just the good news of Jesus Christ. Usually in the Christian standpoint, we're talking about evangelism and the gospel. Gospel means good news. Jesus died for your sins and rose again from the grave. Super important, the best news in the world. But the Bible also tells us to share good news with each other, to rejoice with those who rejoice, so that we can share in that with each other. And Proverbs 15:30 says, "Light in a messenger's eyes brings joy to the heart, and good news gives health to the bones." It actually is healthy. It makes you feel better. It makes other people feel better when they hear good news. There's a physical response to it. And there's also a physical response to bad news. We got to deal with the difficult things going on in the world. We got to talk about them. We got to navigate those problems. And we have personal problems going on in our life. You got to deal with those things. You can't ignore them. But what tends to happen is we tend to ignore the good things. We tend to ignore the things that, hey, you know what? The Lord is still doing some great things in our life. There really is great reason for joy and for something that is uplifting, and it helps. And while the bad news and the struggles that we have to share, it actually has a negative physical impact on our life. The positive things that we can share, the good news, it actually makes people feel good. So we do this segment about once a week where we get together and we share the good news. And you know what? You always encourage me. You encourage everybody listening. So what is your good news? Call now, 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. You can call right now. Proverbs 25:25 says, "Like cold water to a weary soul is good news from a distant land." There is so many people out there. There are so many people out there who would call themselves a weary soul. Good news helps. What is the good news? It's really good news. Here's a good news story for you. This is clip 14:1.
Behind us is a bunch of
the wrong
tiny
one.
homes
Here
for
we
the
go.
homeless. She's an incredible girl, and I'm very proud of her.
This is 12-year-old Macy Johnson, whose brave actions saved the lives of her two older brothers. The house caught flames just before 3 Monday afternoon, fire tearing through the garage of this two-story home. Macy's two older brothers were inside, completely unaware.
My 14-year-old had come home from school not feeling well, and he was actually in bed in that bedroom right above the garage. He was sleeping. He had no idea. And my oldest son was preparing to go to work. He was in the shower, again, had no idea until she started screaming.
12-year-old Macy had just stepped off the school bus and didn't hesitate.
You can see the moment where she realized that her house was burning, and she ran to the front door and just screamed into the house, "Get out, the house is on fire, the house is on fire."
Firefighters from Richmond Hill and Bryan County arriving fast, stopping the fire before it consumed the entire house. But for the Johnson family, who just moved in months ago, the loss is devastating.
You know what? What happened there is a 12-year-old girl is a hero because she ran into a burning home and saved her brothers. You know what? That's really good news. That's super good news, right? That not only did the kid have the ability to do that and the mindset to do that, but it's successful. In the middle of a tragedy, you can have some good news. In the middle of some hard times, you can say, yeah, but look at what the Lord has done in the midst of all of that. So we're talking about good news, uplifting stories. What's your story? What's your good news? 888-528-2557. Diego in Santa Fe Springs, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hi, Pastor Scott.
Hi, Diego. What's the good news, Diego?
The good news is I feel a radical change in me spiritually, where I'm finally reading the Bible and trying to look for the Holy Spirit to fill me every day.
Yeah.
And I finally had good news where I've been feeling it myself, but to have somebody else tell me, hey, you know what? I saw a change in you. I feel a change in you is just a huge blessing for me, and it just motivates me that sometimes you might not see it or feel it, but somebody is noticing small changes in you.
You know what? That's great news, and great news that they told you, right? How encouraging is that?
Yeah. It just makes me want to pursue it even harder.
That's right.
Where I learned the scripture, I can't remember exactly where, but the scripture says test everything to make sure it's good, to make sure it comes from God. Test everything, and that's what I've been doing, and I feel like He's been answering me, and all it takes is me just feeling willing to open my ears and really listen, and I feel like my days are just brighter now. And it's just a huge blessing.
You know what? That's about living with the Lord. You're probably talking about 1 John 4:1. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. Yes. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. You know, that is, it's really good news, Diego, because there is so much falsehood that comes our way. You know, bad philosophies, bad ideologies, and all kinds of, things that make us pursue the wrong thing. But when we do that, when we believe the wrong thing, then we make decisions based on things that aren't true, and then we have pain eventually, because reality always shows up. And when you're walking with Christ, you're walking in reality, spiritual reality. It'll make you make better decisions, and people are noticing that in your life.
Yes, sir. It makes what was once hard to let go just so much easier, where I don't even think about it anymore. Just say, okay, well, I see that I can't keep walking this way now that somebody's noticed me.
Yes.
Now I have a reason now to back up again.
And you know what? That's a big part of your testimony because, hey, I've noticed a change in you, Diego. What's going on? And your answer is the same answer as the blind man who can now see. I was blind and now I see.
It's honestly very freeing. I always heard these testimonies from, other people and people are more experienced in life. And I said, well, yeah, it's because you guys go through this and you guys are religious, but it's honestly, it's a physical feeling that is very freeing.
Yeah.
And I just thank God that He's allowing me to experience it so early in my life.
How old are you, Diego?
I'm 28.
You're how old?
28.
28. You know what? That's perfect timing too, because it's you want to be able to get your heart right and follow Jesus as soon as you can in your life. That's super great news.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, Diego, thank you for sharing that. I think that's something that's really important out there because, people who aren't believers, they're probably not reading their Bible or going to church, but they are reading you.
Yeah.
And that's why following Jesus matters for Christ followers. You're saved by grace, but when you follow Jesus, the reason for that is other people, that they see that God is changing you and they want the same thing, and you get to say it's Jesus.
And the scriptures just seem to make more sense. And the things that would once confuse me, where, go out and preach the word, become a preacher in the name of God. How is that possible if I don't know the word to that extent? But now I'm learning that our own lives can be gospel, and if you live with God, and I'm trying to do that every day, and it's just a huge blessing, Pastor Scott.
Well, Diego, thank you for sharing that good news with us. I think that's a great, great story, and it's such a great lesson for all of us because maybe. And thanks for calling. Lots of people are struggling One of the reasons we do this good news segment, what's your good news in your life? Phone number is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. It could be anything that's your good news. It can be something simple like plans that you're looking forward to, or you found a really good coffee shop that you really like, or maybe something huge. You've got some spiritual growth that you can see and that other people notice, just like Diego. That's why it matters. That's why there's so much in the scripture about living for Jesus. It's what, there's confusion about grace, right? In that, if I'm saved by grace, and this is talked about in the Bible. If I'm saved by grace, if my works don't have anything to do with earning my salvation, then can I just go on sinning? Can I just go on like I was before? And their writing is always, well, no. Number one, if you really believe it, it's going to change your life. Right? If you really believe it, your purpose in life has changed. Your purpose isn't to live for yourself. Your purpose is to live for Jesus. I've been crucified with Christ, Paul would say. And that is really good news when you recognize that in your life, because you're going to make better decisions. You're going to live so that other people see Christ in you. And that is really good news. So, Diego, thank you for sharing that. What's the good news happening in your life? 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. It can be anything at all. A victory that you've had, answer to prayer, something that you're looking forward to. Maybe you just had a great weekend and you just want to share. Don't think of it as bragging about something. Think of it as, hey, I'm sharing that God is doing great things in my life and that we have, in the midst of difficult times, so many great things to look forward to. When you do that, you encourage others, just like Diego just did. For people out there who are wondering if it's worth it to follow Christ, the answer is yes. And you just heard why. 888-528-2557 is the number, 888-528-2557. What's the good news on the Pastor Scott Show? Hey, another piece of good news for you is that our Ministry of the Month is India Partners here at KKLA, our home station in Los Angeles. Children as young as 8 are being exploited, but the good news is that safety is waiting. And India Partners operates safe houses in India. They provide a place where children of trafficked women can escape, and women who are being trafficked, women and children being trafficked, can escape immediate danger and be brought to safety, stability, and care. And for just under $9 a day, you can provide a woman or a child a full day of safety, rescue, and care. And I want to encourage you to go to kkla.com and click the banner at the top of the screen and provide as many days of safety as you can for these women and children. $275 would provide a whole month of safety, rescue, and care, which is nutritious meals, safe place to sleep, away from harm in the streets. Just go to kkla.com, click the banner at the top of the screen, or call 855-522-3834. You can find all that at kkla.com. That's some good news. We'll be back more with Sylvia and your good news when the Pastor Scott Show continues. Welcome back, everybody. Pastor Scott Show. We're live on Thursday, and we're talking about the good news. What's the good news in your life? Call now, 888-528-2557.
Good news. Don't hold it back. A smile, a win, or you're on the right track. Call Pastor Scott. We're ready to cheer. Tell the whole world what they need to hear. Hit me with the good news.
That's right. We're talking about the good news in your life. What's good? What is something that you're excited about, something that has happened or it's about to happen that you're looking forward to or that you can celebrate with us? We want to celebrate together. What's the good news that has happened in your life recently? It can be a really big deal. It can be a really small deal, but just something to share with each other. The Bible tells us that it actually helps give health to the bones to share good news with each other. And I think that's because we're typically bombarded with bad news. So what's the good news? Call now, 888-528-2557. Sylvia in Walnut, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Pastor Scott, good afternoon. God bless you, sir. How are you today?
I'm good, Sylvia. What's the good news, Sylvia?
Last Friday, my husband collapsed, and he tried to make the emergency call, but he called me, and I rushed, to his work, and we took him to the emergency, and they stated, that he was going through a stroke. So we were there Friday night and Saturday and going through every test, and they said that he had the TDI, Trishania, whatever the acronym, for stroke. And the neurologist and the other doctors continue to run, the regular CAT scans from head to toe. He has a good, the brain was okay, the heart and the lungs. So they released him on Sunday, and it was a long 3 days sleeping in the same clothes next to his bed. And I continued to pray and ask God, Father, like the caller just said, search every part of our marriage, of our lives, and how we serve you, Father. And there was some times, Pastor Scott, that I just honestly had to just cry and say, Father, we trust you. I trust you. Yesterday, we went into an ENT because all of his tests were normal, but they just couldn't explain this TDI. And he had a blockage in the right ear, which caused the vertigo, which caused the blood barrier, the water building up underneath there on his right, temple lobe.
Yeah.
They went in and performed the procedure. He came home, and this morning he was walking around by himself. No slurring, no face drooping, and I went to school, and I'm still looking back, Pastor Scott. I'm honestly, when I heard your voice, I heard the celebration, give a smile, give a celebration. I couldn't wait to dial your number and say, we never thank you enough, sir, for leading us to God and, telling us to trust and believe and to always listen to our Father. And I thank you for always planting seeds, not just in our marriage, but in everyone else, sir. And I don't think it would have been such a, easy time if it wasn't for some of the scripture that you've always provided us. And I just wanted to say thank you, Father, and to thank you for your program and the Word of God.
Well, Sylvia, I appreciate that, but I want to hear a little more about your husband. Is he okay? Does it turn out he did not have a stroke then? It was just the clogged ear thing?
Yes. Yeah, it was. It had what appeared as a blockage on the inner ear. And then it goes on and it just increases builds the fluid underneath, and it'll just keep pushing up. He kept saying that it felt like a balloon was in his head, was exploding. And then the times in the hospital bed, it just seemed like we just had one specialist after another, and it wasn't until after the emergency that we were sent, and I had to keep bugging them. They ruled everything out, and the only thing that was left were the ears and the throat.
Yeah.
So they were thinking his tonsils, and he does have sleep apnea. So when I get off the phone with you, I'm going to take his blood to Dr. Simon, and he won't use the CPAP, but, now that he's got the 100 good bill of health, all we have to do is work on the sleep apnea. And I'll guarantee you he's going to live another 67 more years. Praise the Lord.
You know what? That's super good news. Number one, good news, he did not actually have a stroke, right? That's really good news.
I did.
And that's really scary, right? All of that you went through. And you know what? It's good that you kept pressuring and kept at it, because you might have just resigned yourself to he's got a stroke, and really he could end up with something worse that didn't get treated.
Yes, sir.
So, Sylvia, that's amazing good news. Good for you.
Sir. Thank you. Thank you for having these shows on Thursdays that we can all come together and, just check in, not just with the pastor, but, it's just to allow the Lord to know that we serve, what a mighty God we serve, with a happiness in our heart. If we could just celebrate, if I could just celebrate every day and find something to celebrate with a smile and a cheer, like your song says, I would just, I'm going to try to make it a better habit.
Well, thank you, Sylvia. And say hello to your husband for me. And I hope everything works out okay with the sleep apnea. And that solution works for me. So hopefully that'll work for him. Sylvia, thanks for calling the Pastor Scott Show with that. 888-528-2557. What's the good news happening in your life? It can be something huge, like I thought my husband was having a stroke, but turns out he just had this clogged ear canal or something, and we figured it out, and he's better now. That's great news. Maybe you just have something more simple. You just have something you're looking forward to this weekend, or you've got some good plans. What's the good news? 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557. Is the number you can call now. That reminds me, Hosea, there was somebody in our church who she ended up having some kind of problem with her ear canals because she went to some, I just want to say quack doctor, right? Some lunatic doctor who convinced her somehow to pour olive oil down her ear canal or something. And it hardened in there. It's not funny, but it's kind of funny, right? It's just one of those, it's like you did what now? You found this doctor on Craigslist or something who told you, you know what, you could probably clear out your sinuses if you pour some extra virgin olive oil down your ears. And it was a bad problem for her, a seriously bad problem. And similar to that, she thought she was having a stroke, but turned out she wasn't. So, don't go to your Craigslist doctor, out there and check that out. All right. 888-528-2557. You got some good news, Jose, in your life? What's the good news happening?
Well, I guess the good news is I actually got money back on this year's refund.
Oh, that's right. We talked about that yesterday, but it still feels good, right? You actually got what you were going to get $5, you thought, and you got what?
No, so last year I got $1,
right?
And now over here I get like over 500.
Yeah, see, that's really good news. The big beautiful bill worked out for you.
Yeah, especially because we have an anniversary coming up later this month, so we're gonna go to the Castaway. So I'm gonna recoup some of that money back when it finally hits.
All right, well, good for you. That's really good news. 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557. I got some good news. I don't know if I share this, kind of on the radio, but, we're family, right? It's just you and me here. Jose, did you notice I was not actually here on Monday? I don't know if you noticed that, but we replayed some stuff on Monday. We're pretty sly about that if for some reason I'm not here. Did you notice that?
Oh, I noticed.
You did, yes. Well, on Monday, I had a routine, colonoscopy. Can I tell you about that? We won't get too much into it. It's embarrassing to my kids, which I thought they would find the whole thing funny, but turns out they don't. My good news anyway is that I got no problems. There's no cancer in it. I don't have anything to worry about. But I do encourage you to go get checked out because you never know, right? Because the bad news is one day in your life, you're going to go to the doctor and they're going to find something that shouldn't be there, right? You don't want that day. And that was not that day for me on Monday. So that's good news. I'm healthy in that particular area.
Now, did you have to fart to get out?
We don't need to go into all of the details, with how all of that works. And, we're friends and we're a family. But, what's funny, though, is I asked when I woke up from the whole thing, I said, do I get the video of it? And they said, no, but we give you the pictures. Really? And I have the pictures. So I went home and I said to my youngest son, because I thought he would be into this, I said, Johnny, I got the pictures. Should I post them on the Pastor Scott Show Instagram? And I thought he would giggle and say yes, but he did not. He's like, no, Dad, don't do that. No, you can't do that.
Humiliations galore.
And so I did not. And I will probably just keep those in a file somewhere for the next time when I got to go back in 5 years. That's what they say.
If my mom is listening right now, because I know she listens to the show sometimes, she'll probably laugh at this, but my grandma was supposed to get a colonoscopy a couple weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
I think I told you this, but they tell you not to eat beforehand because it needs to be clean, right?
Oh, yeah.
Turns out the day before, she ate KFC, she ate the chicken and mashed potatoes. So when she went in to get the colonoscopy, they just saw all that.
Yeah. See, we're getting, it's afternoon show here, but, when you have to do that, the bad news is there's a whole preparation for this, and you just got to do it. You just got to take care of that. And but all of that is to say is, hey, it's good news. I'm healthy, and you particularly if you get into your 40s, that young people. So Diego is 28, called a few minutes ago. You know what? Young people are getting colon cancer in alarming rates today. And they're saying that's because of all the processed food and all the garbage, that everybody is eating these days.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think Robert F. Kennedy Jr., you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And so all that is to say is, hey, you know what? Don't be afraid to go get checked out. It's not the greatest experience in the world, but you know what? It's good to know one way or the other. It's good to know if things are good. It's also good to know if things are not good, because then you know how to pray, you know how to deal with it, and take care of that. All right, so that's the very personal sort of good news in my life. But all that is good. I hope that if you're on the fence, you're like, you know what, I'm 50 years old, I'm 45, I'm 55, and you're thinking, you know what? Just go sign up for it. Go take care of that. It is completely worth it, okay?
Okay.
All right, everybody, this is the Pastor Scott Show, and we share the good news with each other because it's important to be encouraged and to encourage each other, and because the Bible tells us to share the good news with each other. And it's not always talking about evangelism and sharing the good news of the gospel. It's share what's good in your life. Share what God is doing. And it builds people up and encourages people in ways that maybe you don't even understand. It brings health to the bones, the Proverbs writer tells us. The good news of Jesus is he died for your sins and rose again, that even if they find something that shouldn't be there in your colonoscopy, if you know Jesus, you're going to be with him forever. So your best days are always ahead. Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com to connect with us online. We're on every day, live from 3 to 5. We'll be back in 4 minutes. Don't go away. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com to check in with us online. You can follow us on social media, get our podcast, or live stream, and watch the Pastor Scott Show. All of those links are at pastorscottshow.com, pastorscottshow.com. Phone number to join the conversation is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. We talk about issues of the day from a Christian perspective. Go to clip number 7.
Have you seen the new domain name that the government just registered for a website? Alien.gov. If you go there, this is what you're going to see. Clearly, it's not live right now, but you know it's raising questions. Remember, just last month, the president said he's ordering the Pentagon to release a bunch of files related to UFOs and aliens. We are out to the White House for comment. They got back to us writing, "Stay tuned!" ! Alien emoji.
So the government has a website they're getting ready to put out called aliens.gov, aliens.gov. And the reason is because they're getting ready to tell us whatever it is they're going to tell us, right?
Okay.
They're going to tell us something. And I got to tell you, there is some weird stuff going on out there. And what I want you to do is think about this from the standpoint of your faith, of what you really believe. I'm not going to tell you that I believe that there are aliens that are here and around us, although there's some people that I know that would not surprise me if they're from elsewhere, if you know what I'm saying, right? But there's some weird stuff going on, and I want to share that with you because I kind of want you to think about this question. If tomorrow they did announce, if alien.gov announces that alien life is real, would that shake your faith at all? How would you view the world? What do you think would happen there? If Donald Trump has got a video on there on alien.gov coming up, and he says, "I want you to meet my friend here. I call him E.T., E.T., extraterrestrial." Came up with that. He calls him something, right? And he's sitting there, and what would that do? 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Now, I tell you that because in the bigger picture, there's a weird faith angle with this discussion. If you've been following it, I mean, there's all kinds of National Enquirer weird stuff out there, right? But the government's about to release something, and there are people in our government, Congress people who are speaking out, and they're saying some incredible things. And one of those people is Congressman Tim Burchett. You know who that guy is? Yeah, he's that guy. And he is addressing part of this from the standpoint of faith. Let's go to clip number 8.
This is the biggest issue of our time. And they say it's, religious, it could wreck religion. So I don't see that at all. I don't have any trouble believing that God made something else. I'm Southern Baptist. Jesus died for aliens too,
What in the world is he talking about? Think of all the issues that we have in our time. He's in Congress. What would you say the biggest issues of our time are? The war in Iran, the national debt, the economic problems that we've got here, wars in Ukraine, what's happening in Israel. There's all kinds of problems that you could think about, and yet what he thinks is...
This is the biggest issue of our time. And they say it's, religious, it could wreck religion. So I don't see that at all. I don't have any trouble believing that God made something else. I'm Southern Baptist. Jesus died for aliens too,
So it's a wild thing when you think about it. Would that shake your faith? What kinds of things? And I tell you that because throughout history, things come about and it does shake people's faith. People who go to church all the time and they think they're pretty secure in what they believe, but then something changes. Somebody comes along and says, you know what, I'm going to give you a new idea, evolution of the species, and shaked a lot of people's faith. Or I'm going to come along and we're going to dig up some dinosaurs, and maybe the Earth was older than you thought, and we're going to come up with something new, and it causes a lot of people to question things and never thought about it before. I think it's worth doing, and something's going to come out here pretty soon on this subject. And personally, I think that some of this, I'm going to play some stuff. It's pretty weird. I'm going to let you hear it in just a second. I think a lot of this is the government saying, hey, look over here because we have some fancy technology, military stuff that we don't want people to know about. Or worse, the Chinese or Russian governments have something that we don't have, and we don't want you to worry about that. So there's some kind of distraction thing going on here. That's what I think. But over the course of the last few years, we have official sort of UFO sightings. It's really called UAPs, right? Unidentified aerial phenomenon. That's what they're calling it, UAPs. And it's naval officers, naval pilots, Air Force pilots who are finding things in the air and tracking them with radar. There's video, it's been released. There are government reports that don't really tell you a lot, but they do tell you that there's something out there that we don't know what it is, right? That, or at least we're not saying. I suspect we probably have a pretty good idea of what it is, right? But maybe we don't. And I'm going to throw and I got this email from a listener who wanted me to look into the idea that over the past year, maybe some of you are aware of this, that he said there are all kinds of murdered or missing scientists who work on highly top secret or kind of military space projects that have been murdered or disappeared. When I got that email, I thought to myself, you know what? I get that stuff all the time from people, and you got it off of some website, some crackpot in his closet writing stuff, and it's all made up most of the time, right? So I Google this, and it turns out, actually, there's a weird thing where there are missing scientists. And scientists of this nature who, in the past year, they have been killed. Number 9.
8 missing or dead scientists, many of them, I think most of them, with just in the last couple of months. Some of these stories do go back about 2 years, but they work at a handful of highly classified, high-access areas like NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratories or Los Alamos in New Mexico. They have access to highly sensitive information.
They do. Again, I think it's sending a message, and I think the message is pretty clear. I've talked to some people, and this has had a real chilling effect. People don't want to talk about this issue of unidentified flying objects anymore, and it's kind of difficult to get to people because they are afraid, and probably rightfully so. So, I don't know. Everybody says, Birchie, they get on about little green men and flying saucers. I just want to know what we're spending tens of millions of your hard-earned tax dollars. And when a bureaucrat tells me the president is on a need-to-know basis, we got to get some answers.
That's Congressman Tim Burchett saying that. That's not just some guy, right? That you can find people who are going to say anything. You can make an AI person today who will just say anything. So what do you think about this? The idea that some secret's going to come out. The government has aliens.gov. There are missing scientists. Some of them are dead. Is it a coincidence? It probably is, honestly. But it is weird, right? And you've got people. He's not the only one. Burchett's not the only one out there saying this. Other people in politics are saying this. How would it affect your faith if it turns out that there's something else out there? 888-528-2557 is the number. 888-528-2557 is the phone number. I want you to listen to a couple of different things here. This is Tim Burchett. He's on TMZ, right? That's not necessarily your best source for news, but they're right about things, from time to time. But I want you just to listen to this. And I just want to know, how do you respond to this? Does it frighten you? Does it intrigue you? Do you find it funny? Do you find it weird? All right, this is his interview on TMZ 5-1.
So there have been different reports over the years. Some reports that there have been pieces of machinery that were found that did not seem earthly. And then there have been reports about life that is not earthly. Which one of those two, or both, are you talking about? A form of life that is not earthly, or just something mechanical that's not earthly?
I'd say you'd be safe to say both.
Both. Now, he's in Congress. All right, this is not just some guy. He's in Congress, and he claims that he has seen this, that there is some kind of technology or some kind of life, or both is what he says, that is unearthly, they said. Let's go to 5-2.
The way you described this, whatever happened at this meeting, this briefing that was happening, was there something that if we knew, we would feel that we are in danger? You said you wouldn't sleep at night if you knew the things that I saw in these briefings.
Yeah,
Should we believe that? That's the part where it seemed alarming.
I don't think we're at danger of this. I mean, if these things exist as I think they do, they could have destroyed us with a blink of an eye. I just don't see that, and I think that's. I just think, but I do think they have the technology and the capabilities of something that we can't understand or we can't grasp.
Who's they? What they are they talking about? Jose, what do you think? You hear this right now. What do you think about? Well, this guy's in Congress. He's not just some guy, random guy. He's in Congress. He's claiming that he has seen this kind of evidence and he wants to know what it's about. What's he talking about?
I mean, I want to see the pictures too.
That's right. So let's see it. If you
come on, because
But here's the other question: do you really want to?
You know what? I'm happy with just seeing like videos of Air Force pilots, like the camera footage that they give us, like on the.
And that stuff's real, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? There's phony baloney stuff out there, but that's real.
I'm happy with just that. If I don't get like any other alien news, or if they don't release nothing, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with just like.
So you feel like you don't really need to know anymore?
Yeah, I mean, do I believe like there's other life forms out there? Yeah.
You think so?
Based on like those videos that I've seen, I'm like, okay, that's got to be something.
But can't that just be some technology that we've discovered, right? I mean, 150 years ago, nobody was flying in airplanes, and it was a pipe dream, right? Now we can fly all over the place. We can send rockets and do things. Maybe we've discovered some other way of propulsion.
I hope so. I mean, come on. I feel like because these things that I've seen, it's like they're moving so fast. Maybe they're being piloted, but I don't think the human body could withstand
I saw
all that.
one where a aircraft, F-15 or something, shot a missile at it, and the missile bounced off of it. And it's real.
Dang.
So there's something out there. All right, am I freaking you out, everybody? Pastor Scott Show. How are you responding to this subject? 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557. I promise we'll let you say what you think. 888-528-2557. Now, I mentioned that there are these scientists who have disappeared. So there's a mix of all these events and the government getting ready to release something about this on aliens.gov. There's no publicly confirmed evidence of a coordinated plot to kill or disappear scientists specifically to block some kind of disclosure about whatever this technology is. All right, but there's a cluster of cases, and it is raising eyebrows, even among people like Tim Burchett and his, what is going on with all this? Here's a little more from Tim Burchett, in his interview, 5-3.
What I want to make sure I'm understanding is a member of our government has told you and others, I guess, that there is a form of alien life and machinery which maybe brought this living creature here that interacted in some form with people?
Yeah, they have, and they've. It's pretty wild. I know. But I'm just telling you, I'm not going to lie to you. I'd take a lie to tell you. You want to put me on a polygraph? I'll take it.
What is going on out there? I mean, he's in Congress. How does this strike you? And does it bother you spiritually? Does it cause you to wonder about things? 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557. Nick in Ventura, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
How you doing, Scott? My second call. Anyway, I'm a Christian most of all my life. I've been through a lot of stuff. God came into my life years back. But I worked graveyard for a lot of years, and I saw an alien spaceship, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning for about a good 10 minutes.
Now, how do you know it was an alien spaceship? What did you see?
It was so humongous. It was like maybe like 4 buses big and about 10 buses long. It had a window wrapped around it. It was just gray, and it was dark. And that's the one they called like the cigar. Besides that, the supervisor was on the floor level walking, and I stopped him. I was on top of the floor. We have like a patio looking over the ocean, Ventura Piers. Anyway, so I called him. I said, hey, look, what's this behind you? He looked at it. He goes, oh, that's a spaceship, God. And it stopped there just for about at least 30 seconds. Then from there, just turned around, went back out to the ocean. We're looking at it, and it went looking straight up, and just shut out. Within a few seconds, it was gone. All you see is just a white line. And we looked at it for about at least 7-8 minutes.
So you guys stared at it. Somebody was with you as you kind of did this. Now, I mean, do you think it has to be a spaceship, or can it be some kind of technology, that they launched over there from Vandenberg, and there you go. You're taking a look at it in Ventura.
No, it is too big to be something like that. It's too humongous, man. It's like to me, it was like the Queen Mary just floating there.
That
no
big.
Noise at all.
So how long ago was this, Nick, that you
2002.
So a while ago, you're saying. Okay.
Yeah,
so what does that do to you? You think that this is something otherworldly? Did you tell anybody about it, or are you just saying that for the first time now in our show?
No. I told people about it, and a lot of people don't believe me. I said, it's okay. I believe in Jesus Christ, and he came into my life as a kid. I got hit by a car. I've been stabbed, shot, ran over, left for dead 3 times. So I know God is real and Jesus is real. He came into my life. But even though what I saw, I saw it, If there is other human beings somewhere else, it's fine with me.
Well, right now, lots of people are saying that they see things, and that's not new, but it is new that the government is going to say something about it. Nick, thanks for calling the Pastor Scott Show. 888-528-2557. What do you think, Jose?
See, every time people talk about spaceships, they always say, and this detail, it's across it's consistent across with everything. They always say it always shoots up, and I check the videos, and they just the spaceship just shoots away at an incredible speed. So I believe you.
How do you know it's not a moth that's on your lens or something? A little something that is there. All right, and that's part of my question with these things. That whatever the phenomena is, how do you know? And how as a believer do you deal with Congress people saying, yeah, there's something going on?
One thing that really makes me mad, though, is that these videos that have come out in the past, always shaky cam footage.
Well, they're flying their, their F-18s around.
No, but people from the ground, where they see the lights.
But see,
come on.
How do you know that's not just a drone? It's not something that, somebody's doing a weather experiment.
I don't know.
I
need some HD footage.
It's at night, right? 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Juan in L.A., welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hi, Pastor Scott. How are you?
I'm good, Juan. Go ahead.
Good. Hey, so, talking about this, the alien stuff or whatever, going back, I know you've heard the thing before. Okay, the pyramids. We're here in 2026. How come we're not able to duplicate that type of technology? Where did it come from? It's visual. It's right there. It's undeniable.
So tell us what is, and I think I know what you're talking about, but tell us what's special about the pyramids.
Well, the weight of these stones and stuff, and they're able to, how is it that way back years before they're able to build this, but we're now in today, 2026, we're not able to duplicate this type as far as architecture and structure. I mean, where did the technology come from? Where did it go? We don't have a solution. We're not able to solve it right now.
Do you think that they could have, and I think you're talking about the heaviness, right, of some of those stones. They're enormous, and they're wondering how in the world did they move all of that?
And so high, so tall, exactly.
And is it possible that there used to be millions of slaves in Egypt, and they just had enough manpower to do it?
Well, I mean, obviously, Egyptian and all that, that's real too, of course. So, yeah, but, what about, how about in Mexico? These, the Montezuma and all these other pyramids that are over there.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff. I just Googled it, and there's a lot of ways that they can do it, but there is a lot of question about how they could have done it when it could have been. They can't recreate the actual design that they think it would have taken to do that, and some of the details of the sequencing and engineering choices. They want to know, how did you know all that?
Exactly.
But does that have to be alien, or are we just... It's called chronological bigotry when we look at the past and we think they were dumber than we are today, when they weren't. They were just as creative as we are now.
Maybe more so. I don't know.
Maybe so. But it's interesting. Juan, thanks for calling the Pastor Scott Show. 888-528-2557. We're talking about the government is getting ready to start telling us about aliens, or whatever it is that they say. Aliens.gov is a website that is coming out soon. And Congressman Tim Burchett is saying there's stuff out there for us to know. How does that affect your faith? Does it make things... This whole conversation is just weird for you in your faith? How do you address that? 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com. We'll be back in 4 minutes for all of your calls. Frank, Ernie, Robert, and others. Be right back.
Pastor Scott.
Welcome back, everybody. Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com. Phone number is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Clip number 8.
This is the biggest issue of our time. And they say it's, religious, it could wreck religion. So I don't see that at all. I don't have any trouble believing that God made something else. I'm Southern Baptist. Jesus died for aliens too,
That is Congressman Tim Burchett talking about what he says is about to get released, and it is some information where he's suggesting that alien life exists, that we know about it, and the Trump administration is about to release it, and the Trump administration did just start a website at aliens.gov. There's nothing there, but it was purchased. Somebody bought that, so they're going to build something on that. I'm asking the question, and a bunch of calls, so get your calls here in a second. He says that people are worried that it might affect religion. And that usually comes up with this subject, is that somehow if there's alien life out there, and I'm not saying there is, I think all this is something else, but I don't think it affects religion if it is. But he says Jesus died for the aliens. Do you think, Eric says, I don't think Jesus died for the aliens. And, God might have a different routine. We know God made other creatures, angels and demons, and there's cherubim and things like that, and there's a deal. There's a different deal, for them. What if there's life on other planets? Does that mean anything? My real issue, though, with this, and I'll get your calls here in a second, is with this kind of conversation, a lot of people want to talk about it right now. Does it bother you spiritually? Like, what does it... Because what concerns me is something could come out and it's not even true. They could come out and say, yeah, there's alien life and we have this. And really what they're doing is they're saying that so you won't notice that we have some new technology, a new way of propulsion, and it's top secret and, it's just that kind of thing. But that somehow people might leave the faith if some bit of new information comes out. Or maybe it causes you some other thinking there. What do you think? 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Frank in Santa Barbara, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hey, Pastor Scott. Good to talk to you, buddy.
Hi, Frank.
I've been a follower of Jesus for 58 years, and so I've heard a lot of this and whatever, but I don't have a problem with this. The spiritual realm is... Satan's in the spiritual realm, and Satan can appear as an angel of light, so he can certainly appear as a demon or some alien creature like that. And, some of the reports you hear, they're breaking, going faster than fast as the speed of light, and they don't burn up. So to me, it's just a spiritual thing. And then even if they found life on, say, Mars or some other planet, that wouldn't shake my faith, because God created life here. He can certainly create it anywhere else. So I wouldn't have a problem.
So that wouldn't shake your... it's an interesting thing to get into the science, if you will, of spiritual life, right? So if you speak to quantum physicists, people of that nature. It'll blow your mind, and I don't understand most of it. But the theoretical idea of multidimensional life, well, we would call that angels and demons, right? That's what we would call that. They're spiritual beings or something. And I guess that's what we would say. Frank, thanks for calling the Pastor Scott Show, 888-528-2557. Ernie in Bellflower, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hello, Pastor Scott. How you doing?
I'm fine, Ernie. How are you?
Good. I'm good. About 5 years ago, I was in Cerritos, and me and my brother, like we usually do, open my garage door and look to the west just before dusk, and we smoke our Cuban cigar, and we do that quite often. Well, one time, we're looking out to the west towards Redondo Beach, and then all of a sudden, about maybe a few hundred feet higher than a Cessna can fly, we saw two white spheres. And they had no noise, but the propulsion was like swing half to the right, swing half to the left, and it seemed like they were going less than 5 miles an hour because it took so long for them to approach us. And I wished today and since then that I had taken out my camera and took a picture, but we were so interested that we didn't do it, and we just stared at them, and they were, like I said, half to the right, half to the left. Both of them came, approached us, and I kid you not, right when we were looking directly straight up at them, they stopped, and they just went straight up, doing the same thing.
Jose was talking about, everybody always says they like take off. They go straight up.
It didn't. It just slowly, like the way they were going forward, they went up. Slowly, till they disappeared. And we looked at each other and we said, nobody's ever going to believe us. But my brother and me will tell you, we'd take a lie detector test to tell you what we saw. I don't know if it was our government or what, but I've never seen it before, and I've never seen it after. And
maybe
aliens.
Maybe you got.
know.
Maybe you got. How do you know you didn't get robbed in your Cuban cigars you were smoking, and somebody didn't sneak in a different kind of grass in there?
I knew you were going to say that.
I knew that
was coming. I knew that was coming.
It only happened this one time. You got a discount.
I paid $100 for those cigars. They better be real.
Yeah, well, I would probably question that also. Sure, they're Cuban cigars, $100.
But let me tell you another one. Is sometimes although I'm a devout Christian, I watch those alien shows with my brother. He loves them, and I've seen these serious investigators go to Indian reservations where I think it was the Dakotas was the last one we saw, and they interview Indians, and those Indians swear that they've had visits from aliens, and they see that the actual flying saucers, whatever you can say, on the other side of these tall mountains, and they fly in and out, and they've actually been approached, and they call them star people.
It could be that some of that grass got into their peace pipe also. Same stuff as in your cigars.
You think it was some peyote?
Something's going on. But Ernie, does that? How do you? What people say stuff like this all the time, but what does it mean?
I don't know, but he did interview one of the president's granddaughters. I don't know if it was Eisenhower or before that, but supposedly she said he told her that they don't have the ability to reproduce, so they won't attack us. They signed a treaty with one of the presidents that they can abduct women.
Yeah, now I think you're getting into the Inquirer stuff, out there.
I saw it on TV.
I think you saw that on Men in Black. I think there's a whole scene where that happens in that movie. Ernie, I got a million calls. I want to go to the other calls. Thanks for calling the Pastor Scott Show. 888-528-2557. Robert in Downey, or if it's Robert Downey, we got Iron Man with us.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, Robert.
I agree with Frank and the spiritual aspect of that.
Yeah. So you think that you think people are seeing something that's real, but it's more of a spiritual deception or something? And the Bible doesn't describe spiritual life as demons needing spaceships to fly around.
Yeah. If angels go going up and down.
Something else.
About that.
Well, people see something. I appreciate your call, Robert. 888-528-2557. Mickey in La Puente, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Yeah, good morning, Pastor Scott. It's Mickey from La Puente.
Hi.
I've had five sightings over my lifetime. One was in the Boy Scouts. This was a really strange one. It was a blue indigo light flying in the sky. We took a nature hike, and everybody saw it. We saw satellites, we saw jets, we saw helicopters, we saw shooting stars. Nothing compared to this. It sped up real fast, and it slowed down, and it got to a point in the sky and stayed there, and it just expanded real big, like it shot into deep space. The way the rockets punch through the atmosphere and go out into space. And I saw many other ones too. But people can say that if you had experience from a miracle from God, if you never had one, say, "Oh, I don't believe that." Like I say, if you never had experience seeing that, some of these weird sightings, and nobody saw it, you say, "Well, I don't believe that because you didn't see it."
That's an interesting point, for sure. So how do you know? Here's my question with this kind of thing. I grew up in Palmdale, which is a good place to be from. And my place was at the end of the runway at Plant 42. That's where they assembled the space shuttle, the stealth bomber, B-1, lots of stuff, B-1, B-2, lots of different things. Occasionally at night, there were some weird things taken off from that place. And you couldn't really see it, usually when there's no moon. And we had a lady in our church who lived over there, and she used to call the Air Force all the time saying it was UFOs. And I always thought, no, it's some kind of secret airplane taken off. How do you know that you didn't just see something that we're testing out, that we're keeping? There's Area 51 is a real place. We're doing something over there.
Well, here's it's funny you say that, because there was two stories of two different CIA agents that had cancer, and they told stories that were from Area 51, and they said these things were there. What they said, this is what the guy had said. He says, the government uses these aliens and they go to the edge of the universe and back. And they inside the UFO, or whatever the craft is, there's all kinds of them. Some float in the air, some are down, some are this, some are that. They even have some aliens that are still there because they can't get back to where they came from. And from the inside, you can see out at 360 degrees, but you can't see in. And that was kind of, and they all have the gyroscope in the middle.
But how do we know people aren't just making that stuff up?
It's true. But that's what I'm saying. Unless you experience something, you know it. And if you didn't, you can say, he's just lying. But if people that haven't experienced, they can't. One more thing, too, about this congressman. God said he made humans in the likeness of him. Aliens are not in the likeness of God.
Yeah, a whole different story about if there are aliens, did Jesus die for them? What's their story? Mickey, I got to go to a break. Appreciate your call. 888-528-2557. All right, we got a full bank of calls. And so I will get to as many as I can when I come back. We're talking about the government's getting ready to tell us something about aliens, and some Congress people are saying, Birch is not the only one, by the way, saying that, hey, we're going to hear some hard things to hear. I want to make sure that whatever is said out there doesn't shake our faith. Where are you at with that? 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557. Mark will come back with you or many other callers. We'll get you as soon as we can on the Pastor Scott Show. Hey, one of the things that's so important is to take care of your sleep apnea. We talked about that earlier in our program today. And you know what? It's because sleep apnea it's not just the noise you make in the snoring or waking up and feeling tired or something that just happens to you if you get to be overweight or older. It can cause heart attack, stroke. Many doctors believe it causes Alzheimer's disease, many different things. You need to get it checked out. Well, I went to go see Dr. Eddie Simon for mine, and it's because I didn't want the CPAP machine. He has a different solution. It's a custom-made mouthpiece. I wear it inside my mouth every night. It's like a retainer if you ever had braces on at some point in your life. And it moves my tongue in the right place, puts my jaw in the right place. It's completely comfortable. I sleep great, resolve my snoring, stop my sleep apnea. I think this can work for you. Call Dr. Eddie Simon to find out. His number is 800-92-SMILE. That's 800-927-6453. You can also go online to tmjexpert.com. That's Dr. Eddie Simon, 800-92-SMILE. We'll be right back. Pastor Scott Show. We're live on Thursday. Phone number is 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557. 52.
The way you described this, whatever happened at this meeting, this briefing that was happening, was there something that if we knew, we would feel that we are in danger? You said you wouldn't sleep at night if you knew the things that I saw in these briefings.
Yeah,
Should we believe that? That's the part where it seemed alarming.
I don't think we're at danger of this. I mean, if these things exist as I think they do, they could have destroyed us with a blink of an eye. I just don't see that, and I think that's. I just think, but I do think they have the technology and the capabilities of something that we can't understand or we can't grasp.
That's Congressman Tim Burchett. He's basically saying that, hey, the government knows there's aliens and alien craft, and we are about to let people know. The government just bought aliens.gov, a government website, something it's going to put there. And there's another, I couldn't find it. I saw it on television. I couldn't find the clip, but Burchett said he was talking to President Trump about it, and Trump was worried he says that this might bother Christian people. And that usually comes up for some reason. My question is, nothing should bother you about this. But we got a full bank of calls here. And would this shake your faith? And I'm not saying I'm on board with this whole idea. I think it's something else. But, what is your faith strong enough to not be shaken by having some kind of new information out there? 888-528-2557. Before I take a call, Mark, you're next. I want to tell you about Sanctuary Metals. Sanctuary Metals is specializing in helping you move part of your IRA or 401k into physical gold and silver. Maybe you're hearing all this talk about aliens and you're thinking they're gonna destroy the stock market. I need something more secure like gold and silver for my retirement. Well, Sanctuary Metals are the people for you. It's a Christian-owned, faith-based company that will help you secure your future this way. If you've got an old IRA or 401k from an old job and you want to roll it over into a new gold and silver IRA, or if you're over 59 and a half, you might be able to roll it over with no taxes and no penalties if you qualify. It takes about 15 minutes over the phone to get started. Their team will walk you through everything over the phone. You don't have to go into their office. They can do it over the phone, not even on a website. And your metals are stored safely in IRS-approved vaults, giving you real peace of mind. You don't have to keep them in your house. Call Sanctuary Metals today at 800-801-9877, 800-801-9877. When you call, make sure you tell them Pastor Scott sent you to see if you qualify for no fee for life precious metals IRA. You can learn more at sanctuarymetals.com, sanctuarymetals.com. That number again is 800-801-9877. Oh, Mark, we lost you there. I was going to go to Mark, so we'll keep going. Lots of calls, 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. All right, where are we at here? Norman, Huntington Beach, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show. Hi, Norma. Go ahead.
Okay, so talking about the aliens and all the things. So have you noted, I don't know if you know, but I'm sure you do. So at the end of times when the rapture comes and then people are going to be, and the Bible says we're not going to believe that we went with God, that Jesus took us, they're going to believe that the aliens took us. And so everything seems to be playing out exactly like it's supposed to be because people are going to start believing that the aliens exist and everything. So our faith is going to be tested because a lot of people are really going to, that don't leave with the rapture are going to stay here and say, aliens took them. And you're going to be very confused.
That would probably be the reason, right? So the rapture occurs, you're either going to confess Christ as your Savior and be converted when you see that, or you got to come up with something. There are people today who are saying that.
So everything's playing for that, yeah.
Yeah, lots of people today are saying that aliens created the world, right? That you got to come up with something because a lot of the theories about how we got here in the first place, they don't really last very long. So you need to have a creative mind behind it at some point. And thank you.
During those times, it says that the aliens will take us, and people won't believe, and everybody's going to be confused.
Yeah.
And
well, the Bible doesn't say what people are going to think, but it's interesting to speculate about that. Some people teach that in the Book of Revelation, coming out of the abyss is described as creatures that look like locusts with human faces and crowns and scorpion tails to torment people. Some Christians interpret that as demonic beings, in the end times. Others see it as just whatever John would have understood modern military equipment to be and outfits that people wear. Whatever it is, people wonder. 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Jacob and Brea, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hey, what's up, Pastor Scott? How are you?
I'm good, Jacob. How are you?
Good, good. Just real quick, I agree with what the lady before me just said. I feel like personally, I don't believe in aliens. I like the whole sci-fi thing about aliens, like movies and TV shows and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like real life, I feel like politicians are trying to throw the world off as like they know the rapture is coming, and I feel like they're just trying to use that as an excuse to say that that's what's going to happen when all us Christians leave planet Earth. They're going to like kind of use that to deceive people, and like a lot of people are going to think like, oh yeah, aliens. That's why, like how you said, like a lot of Christians are concerned about that because it is going to test our faith, you know. But I personally, I don't think it doesn't really like twist my faith. I still have a strong faith in God, and I feel like all this stuff is just another deception to throw people off, you know.
I think the biggest thing in all of this, whatever's going to come out, is to be not tricked by any kind of deception for any reason. I mean, that's the thing that Jesus warns us about at the end times, right, is deception. And the job, actually, of the devil and his demons is deception. And that deception might be to make you think there are aliens or to make you think that the demons are aliens and change your faith. I mean, there are so many different things that we have to be careful about. That's why you focus on Christ no matter what happens.
Exactly. And then real quick, one last thing, just want to say it's also a first time caller.
Oh, well, I got to give you the first time caller fanfare.
Let's go.
All right. Welcome, Jacob. Thanks for calling the Pastor Scott Show today.
Thank you.
Yep, 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. All right, let's see. We got so many other people out. Stephen in Santa Clarita, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hi, Pastor Scott. Thank you for taking my call. So I wanted to say, I think that Paul kind of pretty much had it covered when he talked about the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that dwells in the children of disobedience is the demon and the devil. Well, these things are coming through the air. So I think that's pretty much, that's his domain, and he's coming through these weird-looking beings or whatever. And as far as shaking my faith goes, I kind of like to actually have one come up to me so I can rebuke it in the name of Jesus and watch it flee.
What if God did create other creatures? You know who believed in aliens on other planets? Billy Graham. C.S. Lewis wrote his whole space trilogy about the idea that there are other planets out there, and one of them didn't fall, and the spaceship from Earth went there and screwed up the planet because we brought sin with us, and they hadn't fallen yet. What if that alien you're rebuking is actually not a demon?
I'm not afraid.
It's such a weird.
Of it, or
it's
afraid to try, or I mean, I think it's all contained in Scripture. I really do. I think that Paul, I don't know why would Paul come up with a statement like the prince of the power of the air, unless there would be people considering, are we really the only life forms in the entire universe? That's pretty. That's pretty proud, to say, that we're the only ones.
Well, the scriptures are very clear that there are other life forms, angels and demons, right? Cherubim, seraphim. There is.
Okay. Well, I mean, but in a spiritual realm, and it has to do with God and Jesus is kind of, the maker of those. And we understand that as being a spiritual phenomenon. It isn't a physical entity, or it manifests itself physically, which is possible, obviously.
And maybe we should be careful because the Bible, a lot of the time when we talk about spiritual things, angels or demons, what we have in our head is Renaissance art, but not actually what the Bible says. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we should be very careful to not decide something is spiritual that really isn't, or really could just be an experience, psychological experience of some kind. Like we were talking about before, somebody sold you some phony Cuban cigars to that caller, and you never know, what's out there.
Right.
Yeah, Stephen, thanks for calling. Stephen, thanks for calling the Pastor Scott Show. David in LA wants to say that it's possible alien sighting, but not sure. Stacy believes that aliens came through portals that people opened. I'm almost out of time. Otherwise, I would get to that call. But you can call back tomorrow, everybody. Tomorrow is Open Line Friday. And on Open Line Friday, you can call about anything you want. So we're out of time for today. You can bring all of this up. You can email me at pastorscott@kkla.com, pastorscott@kkla.com. So David, Stacy, Lori, Eric, and others, call back tomorrow if you want to on the alien topic. I do want to leave you with this. Whatever's happening, Jesus tells us not to be deceived at the end times, at any times. And when we speculate about stuff, that's where we often deceive ourselves. You know, I think sometimes we don't need the devil to deceive us because we do it to ourselves. And then sometimes the devil is right along doing that. You know, when it comes to aliens, you know, keep in mind, not everything that's unexplained is necessarily demonic. These UFOs, UAPs, there's military technology, atmospheric phenomena, misidentified. There's a whole lot of different things that this could be, whatever things are true. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that people are just making up. So focus your eyes on Jesus. And there's a lot of things that might shake your faith. There have been scientific discoveries that have really bothered people, but go back to the scriptures and what the scriptures actually say. You discover something pretty interesting is they don't define a lot of stuff that sometimes we define in our mind or in our art, like the world is flat or something like that. No, actually, it doesn't say that. So focus on the scriptures and focus on Christ. Tomorrow's Open Line Friday. We're on from 3 to 5 live and call about anything tomorrow. PastorScottShow.com. Go to PastorScottShow.com. See you tomorrow. Good night.